Hello, this is Tyler Beamer, math instructor at Haywood Community College. This is an instructional math video for DMA 030. The purpose of this video is to show students how to work with proportions. So a proportion is a statement that two ratios or rates are equal. So in the last section we talked about what a ratio and what a rate is. A ratio is essentially comparing two quantities. So in a proportion, we're essentially setting two ratios equal to each other, and notice that these ratios are written as fractions. Okay, and so if we want to read a proportion in say sentence form, for example, we would read this as 5 is to 6 as 10 is to 12. So the as is kind of like the equal sign in the middle. Okay, so the next part of the section is determining whether a proportion is true or false. So, we can set two ratios equal to each other all we want. That doesn't imply that they're actually equal, so we need a method for testing that. So the easiest method for doing that is to use your cross products, where you essentially take the denominator in one ratio, multiply it times the numerator of the other, so in this case b times c, and then find the other cross product, doing the vice versa. And then we want to determine whether those two cross products are equal. If those two cross products are equal, then the proportion is true. So if they're equal, proportion is true. If the cross products are not equal, then the proportion would be false. So, and that's important. Obviously, if we're going to create a proportion, we want it to be true. If it's false, then that could obviously cause some issues. Alright, so here's an example of determining whether a proportion is true or not. So is 4.1 over 7 equal to 2.9 over 5? Okay. So find the cross product. So one cross product is 4.1 times 5. And so when we multiply those two numbers together, we get 20.5. And then the other cross product is 7 times 2.9. And so when we multiply those, we get 20.3. So because these two numbers are not equal to each other, then this is actually a false proportion. So essentially what that tells us is that these two ratios are not equal to each other. Okay. One of the main ideas in this section is solving for proportions, and we're going to use this quite a bit in the coming sections. So oftentimes if we have a proportion, one of those numbers, one of the four numbers, will be missing, unknown, and we want to take steps to find out what that is. So to solve for an unknown value in a proportion, we can once again use the cross products, set the cross products equal to each other is the first step, and then divide the number not multiplied by n by the number multiplied times n. Okay, so let's show an example of that. So here's an example. Okay, notice we've got a proportion and that one of these four numbers is missing, and that's being held by the variable n. So we want to solve for n. So find the cross products. So 51 times n, obviously we cannot multiply out to get a quantity there, but we can write that as 51n, which implies 51 times n. Okay. And then we set that equal to the other cross product, 34 times 3, which is 102. And then you're going to get a simple one-step equation every time you do this, regardless of where that variable is in those four numbers. And so to solve for n, we want to isolate it, so we want to get rid of the 51. So because these two are multiplied, we're going to do the inverse, which is to divide. So we're going to divide both sides by this number. That's multiplied times n, and so basically 51 over 51 gives us n, or 1n. And then 102 over 51 gives us the value of n that we're missing. So essentially you just need to take this number that's not with the n and divide it by the number that is in front of the n. Okay. So once you do this, you can then check to make sure that you did it correctly. If that is the true value of n, then this should be a true proportion. So then I can once again do my cross multiplication, and the cross products should be equal to each other, and they are. So that indeed tells me that I have the correct value of n. So once we solve for n, we can essentially check our answer. All right. If you have any questions, please email those to me or stop by the office. Have a great day.